We're running some more, so I'll keep it on.
All right, Jody, if this is live, so however you need to do your part.
Are we live? I'll be out in my truck now.
I've run like 5 of them.
While you're there, Mr. Lewis. I'm gonna go ahead and file a declaration from yesterday and what's coming next week. Cover it, just in case.
And the governor already had it.
We did. They're both the same, I just start the court each one. Do you have anything over 9.7 inches? Fall anyway? No, the highs out, there's somebody, Greenbrier guy, 9.7 inches what he jumped out of last night. Hey. Well, they made it.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
How are you?
All right.
Here's your, you need to.
Listen, I don't want to take the agenda.
Mr. James Smith, you want to watch it?
Okay, I'm going to call the executive finance committee meeting together. We're going to get the shares and Chief Deputy operating. The first on the agenda is discuss trail ride permit, Chief Bill Cott, the past year. We had met once before, right, Jordan, on this, and
Yes, sir. What it is, you know, the incident that happened last year at the end of kind of the trail ride season. And Mr. Bill and I began looking thoroughly at the trail ride permitting process, and there's a lot of things that the parish is not doing according to ordinance, and there's some things we're doing that's conflicting with the ordinance. The ordinance strictly and solely gives people permission to ride a horse on parish roads. There's nothing about the land on the sides of the roads or private property. And some things that was brought to my attention through the sheriff's department is, well, one, we give an alcohol sales permit connected to it. But it's illegal and against our ordinance to have the alcohol on the trail ride. Our ordinance says no alcohol on the trail ride, so we're combining giving people permission to ride horses on the road and sell alcohol. So that part needs to be separated. Also in accordance with our ordinance, there's a lot of stipulations, one being that they have to advertise 30 days, and they have to give the sheriff's department 2 weeks notice prior to the event. And they have to advertise in the official journal. What's happened, Mr. Lewis, and we all know this, is the trail ride has turned into a big land event. And we're basically giving people permission through the course of it to conduct commercial property on agricultural land. To conduct commercial business. They're selling tickets to concerts, they're selling alcohol, and they're selling merchandise, and it's a lot that's conflicting with it. So the sheriff and Mr. Beal got with me, and we're just trying to figure out if it's going to be, we need to separate two. We need a special event ordinance and permit, and we need to see what the jury's pleasure is with the current ordinance for trail rides. Because right now in the books, the sheriff is exactly right. They're supposed to go through, which I have, you came to the meeting, and we explained, it starts with the advertisement, the 2-week notice. The advertisement can only advertise for a trail ride. They're advertising for trail rides, bands, parties, alcohol. So that they have to buy a separate ad if they're gonna be hosting a party, so they can't combine it with, because it says in our ordinance, the exact verbiage for the trail ride advertisement is supposed to be ran. So, what the sheriff is gonna come here and talk to you about, what we would talk about, is what's the jury's pleasure, because they are, under oath, they have to enforce our ordinance. So, and the same thing combines with them, their part begins and ends when the horses get on the road and when the horses leave the road. There's no security at after trail ride events required, or any part like that. Have I missed anything out, Sheriff?
No, I'll be happy to speak.
Yeah, please do. You can.
Can I ask one question first? Do we make other, organizations get a special event permit for alcohol?
We don't have a special event ordinance.
We give them one day permit to set up,
But we do give them, and this is for other events.
other than this also.
And that's another part of it, we have to look at how that's given, because according to our alcohol ordinance, you can't sell alcohol between 1 a.m. Sunday morning until noon Sunday. So we can't even give them a permit that goes really past midnight on Saturday.
But we do have something in place.
Not really, no.
We granted permits like that for.
What you do now is you put in a letter request for the event for the certain dates, and we bring it to the jury approves it for a special event, but through the state, you can have up to 12 events. 12 special events without having to do a full liquor
But we
license.
don't define special event, there's no ordinance. If you keyword search special event in our ordinances, you're not gonna find a definition of what it is, there's nothing. So we just have a lot of work to do on that aspect.
So as a part of the ordinance, as Jody said, it's the jury, it's the day-to-day, whoever's responsibility to assure that the parts of the ordinance have been followed, and then it comes to the sheriff, and we have to look at it, and it, as the ordinance says, conduct the investigation, and send it back signed or unsigned or whatever. At the moment, basically where we're at is the things that he's talked about today on the current application that's in, those are the infractions that are going on. One being that the application's incomplete, the other that the way they announced it was not the way it was supposed to be announced. And I want to go on record saying, I don't necessarily have problems with trail rides, but the way the ordinance is wrote up, there's no allowance for any kind of permit for a trail ride 30 minutes 30 minutes before sunset. So the events that happen after that, and the fact that the ordinance requires the sheriff to put 2 deputies per 100 people, it's like if we provide security for the after event, there's no real permit for that. And that's an issue. Most all trail rides are going to have an after event the way they've been done in the past. But what caused this was last year we started having a lot of problems with people wanting to do events that was going to attract bunches and bunches of people, and making sure that it wasn't even a trail ride, And so we realized there's a trail ride ordinance, and that trail ride ordinance specifically deals with what happens on the road, not the after event. So that's where somewhat of the issue is. It's a tough ordinance, in my opinion. There's a lot of teeth in that ordinance that makes it very difficult for them to go through and actually have a trail ride. But in our experience in the sheriff's office, the trail ride part is not where the major problems are. The major problems come in the after event, after dark. The last one that we had, which I don't think it was exactly the way the ordinance said it needed to be, and I had deputies there. They had a cutting up there. Two ladies got into it, and there was an aggravated fight, basically with a weapon, and one lady got cut pretty bad. And so I have 2 deputies up there trying to handle this situation with a lot of people, and it's very concerning. And it obviously doesn't follow the steps of the ordinance and what is allowed. So basically, if they get the permit for the trail ride, it doesn't include that. And then we have other issues, you know, if they're doing it for, as a commercial deal where they're taking money at the gate, they're paying people to come do concerts, Zydeco, whatever it may be, there's tax issues, implications involved as well that, you know, that need to be addressed. So I do agree with Jody that somewhere along the way, the jury needs to address special events like this so that everybody knows exactly what we need to do. But currently, it's kind of been a thing of practice that when you have a trail ride, you have an event afterward, and it gets pretty big, and it gets pretty tough to deal with, and then it's not really a part of the trail ride ordinance.
When this originally came up, and the last change to the trail ride ordinance was to fix a lot of the parallel landowners issues with
Right.
cleanup and ruts and parking and all
Benefits.
that kind of stuff. What has happened is trail rides have morphed into a full-blown event, kind of like the jazz festival up north of Jackson, the Sticks, or other things, because different venues have shut down these band concerts, selling tickets, alcohol, that kind of thing. They can't find a place to hold a venue, so they've now morphed it into a trail ride because there's an avenue to get everybody together under some guise. And the jury probably does need to do a special event, because the other one we have is the rodeo out here. When clients host the rodeo, they always put in for special events. When the veterans in Jackson raise money, they usually sell alcohol. That's a
You've
good
got
way to
one day
get.
permit.
That's a 1 or 2 day permit. Sometimes clients 3 days. But yeah, there definitely needs to be a special event for the sounds of things, because it is more, the trail ride is a good strict ordinance that governs just trail rides. All that other stuff that's been added on under the guise of the trail ride.
They don't, I think most people applying are just thinking that, it's just like the last one, the guy had a couple handfuls of trail riders, but he put 300 participants. So I had to question him, I said, you can't put 300 people on a couple handfuls of horses, so what is the trail ride? He said, oh, well, let's put 50 riders and 50 horses. And that's, he's combining the party with the trail ride permit.
But can we regulate most of the trail rides on private property? Are they supposed to use on the road?
No, they go on the parish road.
I'm saying the trail ride itself is on the parish road.
And that's the other issue
Yes,
is
the other
that
stuff is on private property.
we're giving them permission to conduct commercial activity on agricultural land, which also is against our ordinance.
It's private property. Can you regulate private property?
If it's an A1, it's still, it's not a commercial, just like, take Gabe Ligon, for instance, and I'll use him as an example. What he wanted to do was sell tickets for a zip line. And we put him through the ringers. And said, nope, you can't do it, it's agricultural land, you cannot make money on it, you gotta rezone. So technically, according to our ordinance, they have to rezone for commercial, or request a variance, go before planning and zoning, and to conduct commercial business. And then they have to file for taxes, you know.
They requested to use all the roads,
Yeah,
now the commercial part belongs to the landlord, because they have no real private property. So we can regulate
but it's,
private
but
property.
they can't, we can.
It comes down to, like you said, it's versus commercial. When Parish's liability stops at the trail ride.
That's it.
What it morphs into after that, then you have illegal activity going on, because if you're selling tickets, you're commercial. If you wanna hold a fundraiser for some kid that has cancer or something, we're probably not gonna do a whole lot
I
on
understand what
that.
you're saying, but
But
most of it's
it's,
on private
when you're
property.
selling tickets and paying a band before and drawing people,
So we gotta get some
he's
more
gonna have
standards
issues,
on
'cause he's
ordinance
gonna-
for special
Cool.
events on
it's like,
private property.
wait,
I think the best thing the parish can do, because we like the trail rides, they need to come up with a set of property that they wanna have all the trail ride and parties on. They need to go through the motion and have it rezoned, and we have a designated place. Here's your trail ride, here's your property, it's rezoned. Sheila Flowers and all these trail ride groups need to get together and designate something that they can go and get rezoned.
Because some.
Mr. President, could I
Please
speak?
do.
On the ordinance itself, and I wanna be clear, the sheriff's office is not here saying, we don't want a special event. But if you read the ordinance, and we've talked about the teeth that it has in the ordinance, which is really good layout of how it needs to be done to kind of protect everybody. But as we said earlier, there's no language about the special event after. Well, therein lies the problem. Because now when everybody goes home at night, and everybody's in their bed, and we have this event happening out there, and there's no language on that, and the stuff starts happening, now the sheriff's office is the only one that can try to keep this under control. So what I'm advocating here today is that the special event after the trail ride is not a part of the permit. It doesn't actually give them an ability or permission to hold a live concert. And all I'm asking for is that if that's what we're going to do, and we're going to say that that's a part of the trail ride, then let's sit down and write an ordinance and not allow that to happen until we can get something, but something in writing to control it if that's possible. Because, I mean, it's kind of tough when you've got hundreds of people out there and things start happening. And actually, I can't, at this moment, I can't really leave my deputies out there at a private event that they don't have a permit for. You know, and we're happy to do what we can, and we don't want to, again, I'm not advocating to say that I'm against special events. I'm just saying that under the current situation, the way these trail rides have been done, we're not following the law if they're out there because here's what you run into. On your noise ordinance, which is, there's a couple of different ones, but when you start talking about a PA system and anything like that, there's a few extra things that are exempt, like a football game or something like that. These events are not. And the way that ordinance reads is that if you can hear that PA system within 50 feet from where it's being played, it's excessive and it's supposed to stop. So we've got some problems here that we need to fix, because when they happen, and these things do happen, I got all kinds of people calling me at the house at night wanting to know exactly why are they playing the noise, why can't they get the noise quieted down and all that. So I think we have some conflicting things that we need to look at.
I never been to a trail, I never have. I see a trail, I said, coming down the road, going back home, going back.
And all I'm trying to do is just, you know, because I get the calls when they have the events. I get the calls basically saying 3 miles away I can hear the music. And that's not just trail ride events, that's other events. And we've taken that ordinance and we went to them and said, hey, you got to quieten this down.
We will have to, definitely go into special evening, because up by me, we have a barn park way back in the woods.
Right.
People go there, quite a few people, so I'm gonna regulate that also.
Well, just say you have a family reunion right now on private property where people came, and we get a call about the music being too loud. We're gonna go and apply that ordinance and say, but on the other side of it, they're not usually taking up money for that. There's no commercial part of that. It's basically the complaint's gonna be, they're too loud, they're playing the music too loud, and we go and ask them to cut it down and give them an opportunity to do that. But what we're dealing with a special event, where they're taking up money at the gate and all that, is a different just situation. And I would venture to say that there's a lot of people that come for that. It's not in the trail rides. So now this number grows once they start the event.
So, what are you saying for now? Do we need to go ahead and kind of only allow a trail ride, got one person and one horse? I mean, 50 people.
No, there's exceptions for it in there, if they have their kid on the back, like the one the other day, obviously you can't put 300 people on 30 horses.
Okay.
That's what I told them, so we went with 50, I said, well, that's exactly, you gotta have kids riding with people.
So
That part, but you gotta understand that it only covers parish roads, when the horses are on the road, 30 minutes after sunrise, and the permit expires completely 30 minutes before sunset. So all that special associating alcohol with that permit means that the alcohol permit expires 30 minutes before sunset also.
The more trail rides over it, the dog.
Trail rides
They
over.
even have the trail ride.
And that's what we're doing. We're being taken advantage of.
So-
People are disguising a gigantic party under the rules of a trail ride, because we throw them out of alcohol permit and
So what we're saying is, we wanna go ahead and let them have the ride, but then stop it and not allow any after the ride parties at this point in time until we
I
have
can
something
clarify,
ready.
I can clarify that. The sheriff's office is not gonna provide security for the after event.
We not responsible for that afterwards.
Right.
That's all,
Now,
that's all.
what I would say about the current application that's in right now is that by the ordinance, the sheriff is supposed to investigate it, which we've done. And we're gonna give some literature back to the gentleman who has applied for it. And basically what that literature is gonna say is that upon our investigations, the following issues have not been, are not in compliance. And that if the jury should choose to give them a permit under this situation without these issues being compliant, then if we have to provide security for the trail ride, we're gonna ask the jury to indemnify us with any future civil liability. So that's where we are with the current application. Again, I don't have a problem if the jury wants to review the current trail ride policy and figure that out. But we're not gonna send deputies to the event because it's not part of the permitting process.
And we not ready, we ready in our road, and clean the road up once they get there.
But keep in mind that we're having a discussion about whether they should be allowed to do that and the legalities of that based upon this. We don't send anybody over there, then all these people get out there. Now we've got a public safety problem if things get out of hand. So, I mean, like I said, the last one we had to call an ambulance out there because a lady got cut real bad.
They said the deputies would intervene.
Right.
We get involved in the
Right.
altercation. We wonder why we would.
Now, I would imagine that probably what we're gonna do is, if the jury grants a trail ride permit to the young man who is actually trying to apply for this, we're gonna sit down and have a talk about the after event and the legalities of that should something happen. But that's something that we're gonna deal with, and then it's kind of up to you guys to find out how we need to address special events from here on.
Jody and I did the other day when he come back by here, he was told and put to the understanding that the permit that if we gave him a permit, it was only for them to be on the road to ride, and that was
And he
it.
changed
No
the last
event,
year's map,
no.
that's the state highway on it now. We told him we're not authorizing them to be on the state highway. That's a whole other department.
Thank y'all for listening, and please understand that we just want to make sure that we do the best we can for everybody. Everybody in these events are able to have a good time, and that we're following the law as we should be.
And once we get this ordinance in place, probably 1,000 people that want to share, we explain the situation, but they're gonna come. Once we say you can have a party after the fair,
But we have to protect ourselves too, though, because, and I use Gabe Liggett again, what he was asking and wanting to do was less than what they're doing at Trail Ride. He was just wanting to sell tickets to the zip line, and we said, nope, that's commercial activity on private property, you gotta rezone. If you're exchanging money for profit, you have to be commercial, and that's the part that the jury has to look at too, is the viability of that.
well, I don't want to dictatorship, but like I said, people will come. People have trails. People ride them down the road on parties. They have land, they have trails, but people ride them on the trail ride. And they have to support them. Trail ride itself, you ride them down the road, and then you go
The
home.
immediate thing the jury can do is the alcohol permit is a separate issue.
Yeah, it is.
Because I don't care if you have an alcohol permit or not, you ain't legally gonna you can't ride a horse with alcohol.
No.
On the
It's not
road,
permitted.
once you go on the road, that ain't permitted.
Yeah, that permit.
Alcohol is, if they ask for a permit, that'll give you the first hint, it's gonna be something afterwards. And probably the only change to the trail ride is there'd be no sale of anything, there's no sale of anything on a trail ride. Even if you have an after club get together afterwards, you're not selling anything.
My permit says there's no alcohol.
And no alcohol.
There's no possession of alcohol.
Who's gonna stop
Well, that's a good
But
thing.
you can have it on them.
We're gonna stop trail rides all day, we say, Paris, all the liquor was on them. You won't have any trail ride in this area. You won't have any. You won't.
I mean, as far as the trail ride clubs, like the sheriff said, yeah, nothing against that.
I know
We just need to do
you-
something about the special events and the alcohol.
Once we,
About people and alcohol,
it's going to
go
go
south.
south. We will not care about this area.
I mean, you can allow them to do the trail ride and deny the after event. I mean, and then they're not, they don't have permission.
You're not
And
organized
then
so
they're
well,
out.
you're not organized so well for that stuff. I just hope it's fair to the trail ride also, you know.
Mr. President, would it be possible if Chief Cox talks a little bit about some prior things that's happened with these special events?
Yeah, we have special events all the time. Please do.
Here, Sheriff asked me to kind of recap where we're at, and how we got to where we are. We had the problem that he talked about with the last trail ride that we're aware of that actually took place. And we had unfortunately had to fight with the stabbing. And then the sheriff got a lot of complaints about the noise level. It was on the Beach Grove Road, and they said you could hear the noise at the Valero and Clinton. So that was really a problem. And we talked about, we need to look and see, we need to talk to someone to see what we can do to sort of resolve this problem, or to resolve this problem. And what I did was I got the ordinance for trail rides and I read it. And obviously, that ordinance does not include anything. It includes a trail ride from a half hour after sunrise to a half hour before sunset. It doesn't include anything about having a get-together with bands and PA systems and all that. So we asked the police jury and they agreed. The sheriff was in a position when he came in, there was a process in place at the sheriff's office that apparently no one had evaluated in quite some time, because the trail ride ordinance was passed in 2014. So that was prior to the sheriff coming in. When he came in, they said, this is how trail rides are done. The agency said, well, okay, that's how they're done. Well, that's really not what the ordinance said. So after I read the ordinance, I sat down with the sheriff, we talked with the police jury and said, let's just follow our own ordinance. That's all we've got to do. And so that's what we're trying to do now. As far as special events, we shut down 2 special events before they started back in the fall. One was going to be a big party for some reason, and the other one was going to be a party on Halloween. And those folks actually put some money out to advertise and promote their event, and then we told them you can't do it. And we met with them, the police jury and sheriff's office met with them and said, look, the ordinances are pretty clear about zoning. You can't have this event that you want to have on the property you want to have it on, because it's not properly zoned. And then I talked with D.A. DeQuilla, and he was wanting to be sure that they were signed up to collect sales tax for the event, because it was a commercial event. Now, one of the people that we talked with posed a question and said, so that means I can't have a family reunion? And we said, no, it does not mean that. A family reunion is a private event. You're not selling tickets at the gate. It's not a for-profit event. It's a family reunion.
There's plenty of alcohol involved also. And some of them do have police there.
Yeah.
But you're not selling it.
But you're not selling it.
For a private, non-public event where there's no admission charge.
You still have private property, about 1,000 people there.
And no one has any desire to stop those private family functions. And we will continue, I would imagine, if the sheriff will let me speak for him, to provide security if we're asked to do that for those events. But for an event that's clearly on a space illegal, because it's being held on property that's not zoned for the purpose, we feel like we'd be in a compromised position so that gets down to the pleasure of the jury as to whether or not they want to enact a special events ordinance that would, set the, standards by which the event had to be conducted. And at that point, then, you know, if the jury decides to include us in the ordinance as they have done in the trail ride ordinance, we would be in a much better position civilly for us.
I heard family union, I heard music from Mississippi, I never mind how, but family union, same difference.
No, it's a difference, Mr.
No,
President.
it's really still loud, it's really loud, the y'all,
Yes,
you
sir.
know, so if you enforce the no ordinance for, trail ride, you should enforce it for family union, right? Same difference. Now people complain about people, so much noise at a family union.
Yes, sir, that is true.
Mhm.
But at the same time, the difference between the family reunion and
And the trail
and the trail ride event afterward, or any special event that's held for commercial purpose where they're taking up money, it is a difference in that respect than the special event, than the family reunion. Family reunion is not illegal, but apparently holding an event on commercial on agricultural zone property that's commercial is an issue, and that's the question at hand.
That's just the thing, I really.
The incident, one of them he's talking about was last year, this group was told nobody's Baton Rouge Parish, told nobody west of Baton Rouge Parish, so they thought they found a loophole to bring their event. It was 3 stages, 45,000 people in a field in Blairstown. And we said no, just by their advertisement, selling tickets, selling t-shirts, selling alcohol, we denied it just based off of their own promotion that they were running. But then it opened the door up to question these other ones that what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Well, unfortunately, because we weren't following the ordinance properly for trail riding, it morphed into them wanting a trail ride permit because they thought if they got a trail ride permit, it covered whatever activity
Yes,
they
you do. I
wanted.
understand what you're saying.
Right.
We don't regulate special events like that, apply for a special event license. We just regulate the trail ride itself and go on the road.
We can get Mr. DeQuella and the sheriff's
Yeah,
department.
Said it was supposed to have a permit, what it's saying is different.
Yeah,
Ordinance is the law, it's a law in Paris, you go out to it, you can make the ordinance.
the parish
So
needs
make one
to
just,
come up with a
President.
committee, do it.
All of the prior events that permits were issued for during my first term, the ordinance was not followed to get the permit.
Well, that's the thing,
Right.
right, that's the thing.
So if we follow the permit, it might solve the problem, the
Not gonna
current.
solve the problem.
And what's up?
Will not solve it?
What it's gonna do is make sure that there's no law enforcement present for the
That's all right,
application.
that's gonna have to be legal, right?
So we need more.
We need to put together people with the sheriff's department, the jury, and
Give it to
Sam
Jimmy,
DeQuilla,
ordinance, yeah.
and come up with a special event ordinance that I think is within our infrastructure to have. If that special event for East Feliciana Parish says you can't have more than 250 people, you know, or something like that to regulate it, to keep us, because they obviously could not have supported that event last year with 5,000 people. And I think that's really what they're looking at now. If we have an ordinance, we can come up with an ordinance, but it's gonna have to be tailored to our infrastructure and our capabilities also.
And it will take a time, you know, that we got to advertise, got to publish in the paper.
We have to write it, right? That's gonna be the first part.
Do other parishes have ordinances that we can?
Most
Yeah.
parishes, well, I looked at Franklin, I looked at West Feliciana, talked to them, and St. Helena, and they don't do it.
They don't do it.
Because it takes away from their vendor events. Like West Feliciana won't give a special event because they have their own markets and stuff.
Park car with that.
So, and they have a park, so they don't issue them because they provide a place for them to be.
But some do, right, Mr. Morrow?
As of right now, I could not find in Unicode anyone that had a special event permit. And
I
I'm like,
misunderstood.
yeah, I went to Franklin Parish, like, 'cause they're like us, I St. Helena, and you can't find anything in there. When I talk to someone, they don't issue them for that reason, because
So then they can't do it.
Well, they've been done it for years and years, but we don't have a special.
or we do like other parishes, and we designate a place where they can get a special event permit that's can facilitate it. We provide a place where they can have it, and that's the only place we permit it. And here's the maximum capacity.
And Mr. Cole, 100 acres up there, was Daniel Carpenter's farmland, when he started trail around there, this place on Beach Road Road.
But separate the two issues, trail rides and then
Yeah.
special events are a different thing, and operate under the trail ride by the ordinance as it's written, which is good, it's got teeth in it, and then the special events, if you're gonna consider it, but understand, you got Jefferson's Place, you got the Legion Hall, we just got that new one, we're about to do that marriage venue out on 956, you've got other people that.
Farm center.
The farms, you got the farm center, and if those venues wanna host something, they're already zoned correctly to do it. So it solves the zoning issue, but if you're gonna do it, you're gonna have to incur a cost, and you're gonna have to get tax ID, if you're gonna sell tickets, you're gonna do this, you're gonna have limits.
We don't have money to place
And
for
that's
We just
why a
need-
lot of parishes don't do it, because it takes money from either their own, what they've already built, like Franklin Parish, they have a fairground. If you wanna have a special event, you rent you a space at the fairground, it's
West
already
Louisiana
rented.
has the same thing.
West Louisiana has the same thing, so that's,
Actually, we don't have a special event in lots of ordinance, we put one in place. And we force something we don't have in place right now, we can prevent from having a party after the trail ride. We don't have an ordinance to even say you can have one or can't have it.
and we really should not be giving an alcohol sales permit for a trail ride, because they conflict. You have a permit that says no alcohol, and then we give them an alcohol permit with it.
And then it's just in place, it's trail ride season, now it's planning trail ride for the rest of the year. We want one in place for a special permit.
But do you think that one of the reasons they pick East Feliciana Parish is because we're an easy target?
I think that may be because of what's happened historically, that may be correct, that because we didn't follow our own ordinance in the past, it just took on a life of its own. So where we find ourselves now is caught in the middle between what they wanna do and what's legal. And we only have one choice, and that's to enforce the law the way it's currently written. And the way it's currently written doesn't allow for this event that these folks wanna have at the end of their trail ride, which they have scheduled for next weekend, they have advertised in the paper. That was, actually what the ordinance says is, their advertisement about their trail ride is supposed to say, I'm applying to the East Feliciana Parish East Feliciana Parish Police Jury for a permit to host a trail ride. That's it.
On Parish Road, that's what it is, on East Parish Road.
Yeah, and time and date and location.
Shirley Road, yeah.
The ordinance goes on to say in the violation section that it's illegal or unlawful to advertise that you're gonna have a trail ride until you get the permit. So when they advertise the other day that they're having a trail ride, they're having bands, they're having this, they're having that, that's actually a violation of the trail ride ordinance. All it should have said was they were applying for a permit. So we're, like I said, we're stuck in the middle. And that's why we wanted to come talk to the jury, and we've been talking with Mr. Morrow. And we're gonna do what we gotta do, and we certainly hope we can work with everybody to accomplish.
It's gonna be hard to tell people they can't have an after party after trail ride. We have a trail ride, we can't have a special event. We don't have an ordinance for a special event.
So we can't give them permission to do that, so if they do it.
We can tell them what, can we tell them
Well,
what?
that's what I told the guy on behalf of the police jury, I told him this permit is only for putting
No.
horses on Parish Road.
That's it.
I said, what happens after that is gonna be between you and the sheriff's
That's
department.
it.
Right,
We don't have to-
we're not giving them any permission
No,
to
we
do
don't.
it, we're not telling them not to
And I
do it.
told him that, so
You can't tell them.
we can give them permission to get on our road.
That's it. That would be it.
And that's one horse, one person,
No,
or one horse.
a reasonable amount.
we're trying to.
Oh, yeah.
Not 12 four-wheelers.
They're allowed to have like Armstrong wagons and some other things,
Not
but
putting the trail.
Can they have four-wheelers?
No,
No, we do four.
No.
Four-wheelers are excluded in the ordinance.
specifically for
No
them.
four.
no motorized flagmen, and the kid has done everything as far as pretty much the trail ride aspect. Where he screwed up is he combined a gigantic 300-person party,
2-day event.
2-day event with a
3-hour trail.
3-hour trail ride. The permit he wanted is just for 3 hours.
Sounds like he was being pretty smart.
So one of the problems
It's
is
a
if you have
substitute.
that event and someone doesn't get the sales taxes, what's the issue there? When it's a commercial event?
And the same problem in Cleveland, they don't pay sales tax. In Washington, they don't pay sales tax.
I think that problem's up fixed up too. Fixed yourself fingers.
So this is got, we can rock and roll.
I don't think the food that's being sold there during the week is.
The committee has any other
He's
questions,
licensed.
be glad to answer them.
I just want to know, we want water filtration, we prevent from having
We don't have the authority, we don't have the authority, the best thing for the jury, and I'm not speaking for the sheriff, and I hate to hear this, but is to do exactly what we did, is we tell them, when we issue the permit, this is for your 3 hours that you're gonna be on the public, on our road, and that's it. Whatever happens before, after, is gonna be between you and the sheriff. We're not authorizing.
You can't tell them to do it, you can't tell them not to do it.
That's right.
Right. I mean, it's not like we're giving them permission and guaranteeing them that you guys are gonna be there. They're gonna have to make special arrangements with the sheriff's department or whatever.
If they're doing a commercial deal, we're not going, because it's not legal.
Right?
Am I correct?
I know what you're saying.
So is that something they're gonna hear from you, or are you gonna expect us to tell them?
We,
As
I'm
I
just
said
curious.
earlier, we will have that discussion when y'all decide on this particular case, whether a permit's gonna be issued.
what we did before, the police jury was represented and we were represented. The police jury explained to these individuals why they couldn't do it, why it was unlawful. And then we explained to them that if they went forward after being given that explanation, that we were gonna arrest them. And that pretty much put an end to those.
And that is within our job description here to explain zoning, which is what that is. So we can easily, when they apply for it, say, here's the deal, you're not, as far as zoning requires, we are not giving you permission to do any of the stuff that you advertise.
Come commercial, once you start passing.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of being clearer in our permitting, make sure they understand exactly what we're doing, and then understanding the commercial aspects of it and how, I mean, we just have to tell them more.
I just find it difficult to send deputies out to provide security for something that's not legal.
And
Right.
that's where this guy is really
Understand.
screwed up. If he would just do his advertisement right and then had his party and didn't advertise it, nobody would know the difference in it really, unless the loud music or something like that. Now, if they roll up on the scene because of complaints and they see illegal activity, but maybe a good show would be have other people call them and explain, or give them a Sheila and say, look, just put this in the advertisement, period, from here to here. If they want to get on social, but again, they're catching themselves because once the sheriff knows of illegal activity, it's malfeasant of him to allow it.
I agree.
So if he doesn't know, then he doesn't know. So a lot of them are screwing themselves by listing all the illegal activity in their advertising, which they're not allowed to do anyway.
Is Ms. Flowers involved in pretty much all of them?
No, we got on the pass, some be in Baywood, some be in Mall, some be up here.
So she's not involved?
It's not just one location.
She's helped this individual get it
Yeah,
started.
that's right. We all in the past. He's up there on, Davis Lane by me to have one.
Probably the simplest correction to the ordinance is to put a no commercial activity clause in the ordinance or on the application that they sign. In other words, if they sign it, that's on there right above it. They know there's no commercial activity authorized. They know that it's having been authorized. It gets the jury out of trouble and it draws a line for the sheriff to enforce. Now, if they go out there and throw a party afterwards and they're selling tickets at the gate and he gets a noise complaint, because I can tell you, I can stand on deer blinds up 67 and you can hear Clinton Band crank up a football game, 5 miles is nothing. So you'll hear the party, he'll get a complaint, he goes out there, then he knows, all right, we have illegal activity and everybody out here, not everybody, because you can't have a bus that big, but the organizers are now liable. They're criminally liable for their activities.
So we could do that on our own. We could just put, this is not authorized commercial activity.
But you're gonna have to put, to include selling of alcohol, selling of tickets.
If you don't authorize alcohol to be sold, it can't be sold anyway, that's special.
But I mean, you want
have
to define what commercial activity is gonna be, because that's not selling t-shirts.
No.
strictly. It's charging admission.
Well, that's like t-shirts at a family reunion, yes, people in the family usually reimburse $10, that's not selling t-shirts. Because I'm sorry, I wanted to stop at some of the family reunions, I'm just not related. So, but that's the kind of thing you have to do, yeah, spell it out a little bit for them if they ask, but you can put that right on the application part of it with the minor ordinance change, it won't take much to do, and that will solve the immediate issue anyway.
They have the two permits, one for the trail ride, one for the special event. If you don't have a special event.
We don't have special events, but you're gonna stop commercial activities, put the trail rides, which is gonna close that loophole that they think everybody's found
We
now.
don't even need an ordinance change for a trail ride thing, we can just be.
Change the application.
We
Then
can just,
they
yeah,
got a tree for
a
the
disclaimer,
trail covering the
basically.
place, see. But
Yeah.
especially even got trail on, right, like
We
the
can just put on there,
outside.
this trail, this application is for this and this only, and does not give, you know, we could get something right.
Yeah.
That could be a start.
Yeah, we just kind of wanted you guys to know what was going on and what our problems were. If we can't, if we don't need to do a special event permit, then we don't. But we have to deal with that side of it, and it's never been, I guess, as I understand it, in the ordinance that you have a special event afterward, strictly for the trail ride. So we're gonna have to uphold the law and talk to folks about it, and we just want to bring it up today and see where we were at.
And the current trail ride application has several things that can be addressed before.
Yeah, before the trail ride.
Yeah, it's a pretty extensive ordinance, well-written, very, very thorough.
But I'm talking about the review that y'all have done on the trail ride so far.
We've done the investigation as the ordinance asks us to do,
Uh-huh.
and basically what we're gonna give back to the gentleman who has applied is something that he brings back. Says the sheriff and the DA and who else?
911
Yeah.
Sheriff, Department of Public Works, District Attorney, and Highway Department if state highways are involved.
And the Department of Health, if there's party guns.
So our part, we're gonna send him back with a letter that discusses the deficiencies that are there.
Okay.
And
So he'll know when he.
we're not making a recommendation, we're just giving a result of our investigation.
That's it. I think it's really, really, having more and more.
I think it goes back to what Mr. Bill and I said, people are kind of taking advantage of our lack of, insight into it. We Parish is code and organization knows if they come here.
Crossing 150 people go to me, go to ride forward. And every Saturday, I be riding on these cars, I already know.
And I do wanna say, last thing I'll say is that, as Chief said it, I've said it, we're in the middle, and all we're trying to do is just keep people safe. That's all it's about. It's about, it's about the noise, it's about the people in the parish, the safety of the people that are at the event, and protecting the laws that are already established.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Because you have one person fight stuff like trail. Cause when kids don't wanna pray in school, all kids can't pray. You have opposition, you gotta look people, love you, you have
I
opposition.
think JR had a great idea with it. We put on the application disclaimer, this is not authorized commercial activity
That's it.
of any kind.
You protect ourselves and.
What happens after that?
You don't hit.
You've given the sheriff a defensible line.
Mhm.
He's got something that, if there's a line drawn, he can defend that line. Just like anything. I gotta have a position to defend.
And I understand.
And if you wanna do, the special event, address it. When we finish with the subdivision stuff, we can go zoning, planning and zoning and look at that aspect for zoning. And it's better not to say there will be no special events. Don't take something from somebody.
Special event
Tell them what they have to do to have
Have a
one,
special event.
and to hold it. And if you don't wanna do it because there's too many loops to jump or ladder to climb to get to a special event, then you go somewhere else. We'll find somebody easier to target.
In the meantime, we start looking for a place to build for people to come and have special events like other areas.
That was the purpose of the read out there, they took it over some young people. It was for the public, for the whole public, but like that, this is straight set lane, so it don't.
Talking about the farm.
No.
Yeah.
I don't even know who runs. Lots of horses.
It's, you know, there's a farm group. that
Everybody,
has
everybody
this.
can use it, this side.
So they're acting like it's a private thing rather than,
You have to be a member of the farm center, which is a nominal dues, but they go out there and they hold riding events, they hold roping events. There, on any given Saturday or Sunday, there'll be 50 horse
Every
trailers pulled
weekend
up out
out
there.
there.
if we first designed that and
It
built that, it was a public
It
building.
was public use, that was for.
And it's, but when they leased it to the farm center,
It's not an easy.
Well, I know,
But
but
they'll
it's-
run it, yeah.
yeah, however it's worded, it became, the group that was running it are horse people. So they're gonna concentrate on what they're gonna do. But they do have public restrooms and everything
We had
else.
it for marketplace, everything, for everything, but not.
They got 22 acres out there total, so. in the
Maybe
front-
I'll work on that disclaimer, and let y'all review it. That's easy. Is that good? Maybe I'll look at the permit, we'll add that disclaimer, and let y'all review it.
Yeah, do this.
And we're-
Excuse me, Jody,
Yes.
I'm muted.
I'm trying to fix it, Yamisha.
Here,
I can't hear. Sorry.
I can't get it to pull back up. I can't get that. I don't know if it wasn't working right. This is. Oh, so now I got memorized. It's not showing me here.
Are you good now? Yamisha? I do good on her.
Yeah, it's not us, and it shows her microphone, so.
And yes, thank you.
Okay.
I'm good. That's what I was wondering.
Yes, sir.
Discussing the repayment from capital outlay reserve, $375,000 for the purchase of the old Clinton Court, cash payment.
Okay, so, y'all bought the, or I don't know where you're at in the purchase of the old Clinton Co-op, but we need to, it's not in the budget, so we need to at least talk about what fund it's coming out of. So I recommended it comes out of the capital outlay reserve.
Thing called the problem, the capital outlay was over the project, but the money was set aside for that.
Well, that was already, in my, spreadsheets that I sent to everybody, the capital outlay was already backed out of the reserves. So, if you look at road and bridge, look, I'll let you look at this. So if you look at this is capital outlay, so if you'll see it's down here So it's just in there. Other than that, if we don't, somebody's gotta tell me where it's got the check from.
We're setting aside so much money a year for capital, we do a overlay project. I want to know just sitting.
But capital outlay money can also be used for buildings.
This is capital.
Well, it's road and bridge. And then
Can it be used for buildings?
it is a road and bridge fund. It can be used for a building for a road and bridge.
Well, the capital outlay was, for some reason, that's where it was tucked before, under road and bridge, just to identify it. But capital outlay is for equipment. But as far as you're talking about the co-op, it falls under the whatever definition, if you want to call it road and bridge, it's still a road and bridge project, because that's who's going to occupy that property.
Right.
The maintenance yard.
We need a motion to take that money out of capital outlay reserves. As written.
Right, so it goes before the full jury.
Wait for the full
So I'm gonna make a recommendation to.
They take out a capital outlay. And we go for the full year.
And I'm gonna request just going forward from the finance committee, when they make major purchases like this, they need to at least ask where the money's coming from first. It would help me, my job.
Yeah, because you're interview.
You said your job was easy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to make it easier.
Good, make it easier.
On the recommendation on, take it out, capital outlay.
Yes, sir.
$375,000. Okay, let's discuss and make recommendations to give solid waste bid on $1,925,000. The board approved surplus, 50% road and bridge and 50% building.
Okay, so I'm gonna say this pretty much 4 through 8 is really about talking about surplus, okay? So it's a big deal. We gotta get our general fund back up. That's the big one. We know that it's in the red this year. So I'm going to read these ordinances to you, and I'm glad Mr. Rushon's here. So I know Sam has kind of issued that we need to be cautious, and I agree. I agree with him. But most of you, I have sent all this request to Jessica, our auditor, our CPA firm, and she's going to take a look at it. I'm going to read the ordinance to you. It's pretty clear to me, in layman's terms, that the voters did approve surplus to be transferred. So I'm going to read it to you. I'm just starting with the collection, 10-year commencing January 1st, 2015, with the proceeds thereof after costs of collection and administration. So to me, that means that we can do administrative fee. So that's on the list. It has to be, it cannot be excessive. So we've got to be careful with how much we want to do. But again, the statute allows for us to have an administrative fee. To be used to provide, maintain, operate, construct, acquire, and/or improve solid waste disposal facilities and services, and to contribute to the maintenance of the reserve equal to 1 year's operating expenses for solid waste purposes as determined by the prior year's parish solid waste fund financial statement, and any proceeds in excess of the above purposes to be used as follows: 50% to the parish general fund and 50% to the parish road and bridge fund for any and all road and bridge purposes, including equipment therefore. It passed on Saturday, December 6, 2014.
Exactly. I'm gonna want to put those two propositions on the ballot, remember they are? And use that money along with the other money. We had a hard time when we did pass it. Folks did pass the proposition, passed both of them.
Yes, by about 500 votes.
Yeah.
It passed. So it is voter approved.
Yeah.
And I'm recommending that we do this. Number one is mostly to help the general fund, okay? By the end, now, something that I want to make very, very clear to everybody is that this surplus is forecasted for the end of 2021, all right? So I'm kind of getting the feeling, some phone calls I've gotten and just general conversation, that this is money that we can use right now. This is a forecast. okay? This is something that I want to go ahead and have forecasted in this year's budget and that we have reserved. So number one, it just can't be spent nilly-willy, you know, that it doesn't, you know, we can't just, you know, just to be responsible. So these numbers that I have on here is at the end of 2021, and it is very dependent on the FEMA reimbursement of $725,000.
Because we put this proposition on the ballot, when we brought the money for solid waste, I fought wholeheartedly, this would pay the money back, remember Dale?
The issue is, the only issue in all this stuff, declared surplus is by law permissible to do.
Exactly.
Okay, if you declare surplus, and I think it tells you, you either have to have this year's budget plus 10% and then everything.
It's just a year.
A year's budget. So we got a year's budget out, we know what that is, we know what it is because the new solid waste company was just paid for, or just redone. So you know exactly what it is. So everything after that can be declared a surplus and moved. And you can do that with the health unit, if there's any surplus left over there or anything else, you can declare it a surplus. Take that money, you can declare it a surplus today, if that's what you want. And it's kind of a green eye shade move, but it's also legal. As soon as you declare it surplus and you move it to the general fund, to the solid, or to road and bridge, or to wherever, then turn around and pay what you already owe those two back to solid waste. In other words, take that same money you just took out of solid waste, declare it a surplus, put it in a general fund, and wipe out what you owe to solid waste. Put it back in the solid waste fund, and in 2 or 3 months, now you have no debt. You wiped it out with money that was declared a surplus and moved. You moved it back as a shell game, but you've met all the features of the law. You're true to your word. You've paid back what you owed them, and then 6 months down the road, or 3 months down the road, declare a surplus again, because it's now solid waste, fat, dumb, and happy, and paid back with its own money, but that's a moot point.
We have to understand that the 1.9 million is already spent.
That's gone. But
Okay.
what you
So
have in
there is
front
no
of
paying
you,
that back, that's why I wanted to do it. The only thing that I want to do was big, and look, I want to look at this sheet, which honestly, this is honestly makes sense to me.
Because when we
The
started, lots of the big solid.
Yeah, that
waste,
money's already
I
been
gave them
spent.
all
So what happens is when we declare that as a surplus, it's 50-50, right?
the money. Right.
Where the loan is actually way tiered more to road and bridge. So road and bridge would technically owe the general fund, we're talking $460,000. Okay? So I'm looking at having a surplus for the general fund of $900,000 if we do whatever we want, whatever we do. If all of this passes at the end of 2021. Because I have $260,000 coming from solid waste and I have $400,000 coming from road and bridge because they pretty much used this surplus. None of this works if we don't forgive it.
So we're going to recommendation to the board.
what's the solid waste debt though?
1.9 million,
1.9.
which is
Where'd that
surplus.
debt- Where'd that debt come from though? I mean, the solid waste debt, where did it come from?
I don't know, I think they did that last year, the year before.
I know we've borrowed $1 million up front for FEMA operation, but that hadn't even finished out yet, so just let that ride. That money's out of solid waste. It's not in there right now. It's already gone. The
It's
other part
also
of
back
that,
in the road and bridge too, right now, is my understanding, so.
Yeah, that's another.
but when the other 900,000 was for a former overlay project that was borrowed way back when.
Right.
Take part of that surplus, because it was surplused out when it was borrowed to, then I think it read general funds. I think general fund borrowed it and put it in capital outlay. However it was worded, you gotta go do the research. But that, and then move it over, call it surplus, not what you've already spent, but what you have surplus in right now over there. Not that, don't count that million, because it's moved already. Whatever the surplus past a year's budget. There's your surplus line, so everything north of that line of a year's budget in solid waste is now surplus.
And we wouldn't pay the general fund back until we got the FEMA money back.
Right.
That would be the portion for that, yeah. So I mean, it's a long term, but it's really good if we stay within budget. I mean, I'm looking at having a healthy general fund going into 2022. If we do this, none of this is gonna happen if we don't.
We'll have to, can't do the overlay project until 2022.
We can't do it yet. You know, because it's all gonna be sitting in solid waste. All right, so what I can do, so that is the first one.
So we can make a recommendation to forgive a solid waste debt of $1,900,000.
We're gonna, yes, and declare it a surplus. We're gonna, number one, we're gonna declare it as a surplus, which will forgive the debt.
That'd be recommendation from the finance committee. That'd be okay.
1.9 million is a surplus.
Denise, you tracking all this?
You got
I'm
one.
listening.
Look,
I know she said something about she was discussing 4.8. I'm just trying to get what is the recommendation? What exactly is going to the full jury?
this is the 1.9.
To declare it a surplus.
So if we forgive it, this is how much cash. This is the fund balance.
You can't move it unless it's declared a surplus.
Right, this is cash. Projected net
Not my whole
for
thing.
2021 is 36,000. We have some payables that they had to pay for 2020, 116. We forgive the debt. We have a reserve for a sales tax refund. My surplus estimate in the year is 2.3. All right, I want to go ahead and move 1.8 to lamp. That gives me a $558,000 reserve right now, without even, you know, that's above what they got now. So, we already have
You're gonna
reserve.
explain lamp and interest on it too, but that's.
Yeah, we already have a reserve of 1.8 million. So this is a reserve on top of that.
And I understand all the figures and everything. My only thing is the jury vowed they were gonna pay that back.
Yes.
And all of paying it back, even if you take it, don't forgive it, declare the surplus now, what you have, move that money, then pay it back with its own money, you've at least done what you said you were gonna do. It's gonna delay the whole process a little bit, but it's an integrity thing. In other words, the jury has met their obligation. They took surplus money,
Right.
moved it, paid it back.
Where's
And
Road and
then-
Bridge gonna pay it back?
Huh?
How is Road and Bridge gonna pay it back?
Pay it back. Well, that's the whole thing. I don't think Road and Bridge paid it back, borrowed it to start with. I think it went to general fund, but it makes no difference. When you split it out and you take the surplus and divide it up
That's the huge question. How is Road and Bridge going to pay it back?
from the surplus.
Surplus of what? They don't have a surplus.
They will once you move the surplus out of solid waste though. If you declare solid waste a surplus,
The only, if I
above.
don't forgive the debt,
There's no surplus.
there's no surplus.
Even wash.
See, here's Road and Bridge. See, they have 3 million. You would forgive the debt. I mean, I guess we could. I mean, I could do it that way. I just think it's unnecessary. Cause by pencil, we can just say the surplus and forgive it, but we can do it the same way. See, reserve theirs, and they have a 1.1 million. Plus the 279 comes from Road and Bridge, which is 1.4.
but you basically are, when I say wait and do it, you're not actually moving the money, you're declaring it a surplus, move it to the other funds, turn around the next day and move it back to, then you met your obligation of repaying it. And you paid it, now it's back into solid waste again, and next month you can declare a surplus again based on the
I
same
mean,
budget.
I would have to put a pencil to that, cause like I said, that money's already spent. So, I'll.
Well, the 900,000 is spent, the 1 million that was given to FEMA project.
We're gonna be
That's based on reimbursement,
Reimbursement.
and when it comes back in, then it goes back into
It's
solid
solid
waste and becomes surplus again, it can be surplused out at that point.
But you see what I'm saying, why wait?
Yeah. All we forgive is $925,000. All we
But
forgive.
then you also have the whole thing, and we've all been around is, the voters decided that they will allow it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
It's
allowed,
Also.
very legal.
But like JRC, it's an integrity thing, when we say we're just gonna pay it back, that's when we will do it.
If you pay it back, I don't care if you pay it back on paper, you've at least done
Why,
what you
why,
said.
okay, I'm just gonna ask a question, why is it such a sticking point?
Because we made a players.
Because it's dedicated, it started out dedicated money, you borrowed it, you gotta pay back dedicated money, you just can't.
But you understand, you should have never borrowed it to begin with, it should have been allocated as a surplus way back. But we should have never borrowed it. It should have been a surplus way back then.
If they was gonna pay it back,
All right.
There was an
I
issue with
agree.
calling that a surplus back then. The cost of garbage collection was a deficit.
we're definitely spending on solid waste back then.
That's right, it was borrowed before it got to be a deficit, but it turned into a deficit over a year.
Okay, so
Well,
my
okay.
problem with that is if we have to pay it all back, everything else is nixed, and we'll have to, I'll come back to the table.
And to be layman with this one, the big thing with number 6 is we could actually roll that money into an interest-bearing, very good interest-bearing account, which by the time we've already done everything, if we do what Lisa said, we could actually make money off of it.
$27,000 a year
Yeah, right now with the
interest with
Louisiana Land
the
Program.
Louisiana Asset Management Program.
So recommendation.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question, or maybe a suggestion. This will make things easier for me when it has to go to the full jury. Are we past number 4?
No, we're still on number
We're
4.
still on number 4.
Yeah, if we
4
don't
through
do
8
Okay, I know we were talking about others. I mean,
4 through 8 combined.
can we do it in order?
4 through 8 is combined, we cannot do the rest if we don't do
No,
number 4.
number 4, we can't do the rest of it.
Right,
So
I mean,
we
I'll
just-
have to regroup.
If we do number 4, we could actually make, how much money? $25,000 off of it a year?
So what we just need to do is,
Recommend that we forgive.
yeah, recommend that we forgive the Jack, do as Lisa suggested on number 4.
What would benefit the taxpayers more?
I'm being paid back on solid waste.
Just make some money off of it.
Yeah.
So make the motion that we recommend to the full jury that we forgive the solid waste $1,925,000 from a board approval surplus, 50% voting rate, 50% general fund. And we forgive it.
I'll make that motion.
It behooves the public if we do that.
Yes,
That's good off.
yes, it would really, it would do the general, the buildings, police department, you know, I say the word prison.
Well, they've already approved it, so that's what they wanted.
I know.
So I don't understand what the big.
Because if we do that, I can do 5, 6, 7, and 8.
So this number is 1 million?
Yes.
925,000.
It is 1 million?
Yeah.
Not
No,
$1,925.
it's $1,925,000.
Okay, thank you.
That's what we just, that we forgive, we approve the surplus, 50%.
Now, if you need for me to do a full-page presentation and go through the spreadsheets, I can do that. But I think that should be done in executive session.
So the recommendation coming from the finance committee to go ahead and forgive the solid waste debt. Board approval.
Got it.
Got it.
Because I'm really antsy to get the land account open. We're just losing a
We
lot of
make
money.
money with the left.
Yes, yes.
Okay. That's the recommendation, you know, approve to forgive the solid waste debt. Then for the full jury, it's the full jury decide.
All right. And,
I don't wanna
make
get
a presentation in executive
I
session?
don't wanna get a whole lot, but
That's not an executive session item.
we'll be good on it.
You can't go in executive session and discuss finances. It's not a
Okay.
legal executive session.
Well, that's
It's
fine.
Litigational.
There's a public,
Yeah, that's all right.
Well, we can, but Jody, we can put the spreadsheets up here, right? Okay.
We can.
All right.
That's recommendation, go ahead and forgive this debt of solid waste. Okay, number 5, Ms. Lisa.
We're gonna do all of that, I guess we can make that case together, because what happens is when I do all of this, I do have $462,000 surplus in solid waste that, we can do this year.
Okay, you make that recommendation to approve the debt from solid waste to the general fund, $462,500 from the surplus allocation. That's the recommendation also. Got it, Ms. Lisa?
Yes, I have it.
Okay, number 6.
That's a second, recommendation and a second.
Yes.
Yes.
You okay, Miss Christie?
Yeah, she trying to take in all the stuff we discussed. She
No,
did.
No, I see, no, she's not feeling well.
That's all
I'm
you-
taking it in.
Getting a little pale, look.
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal is.
Need cracker?
You cracker something? You think about it?
Maybe.
Yeah, you got something?
I know.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you, Janisha.
Yes.
you're welcome.
Poor day.
That's a recommendation also.
It's all because Kristen and Tina is like you.
Yeah.
Make a recommendation to approve the gift from Golden Bridge to the general fund, $462,000 in the surplus allocation.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go kind of in depth with you on that. That is the 50-50 share of the $9.5 million. Okay, I'm on that. The $1.9 million debt. So if you take that 50-50, which is, let's see, I don't have that spreadsheet, the different spreadsheet. I don't have my calculator on.
Well, that's the 925,000 of the previous bar.
Correct.
Right.
So if you split that, to say it's $9.25 a piece,
Right.
all right? Well, that means that the road and bridge fund owes the general fund $462,000.
$62,500.
Exactly. That I would recommend we would not pay that back until the FEMA reimburses their funds.
The recommendation coming from the finance. Second, Ms. Chris.
I second it.
Okay.
They have other problems with that.
Okay, number 6, discuss and make recommendation to move 1-year budget expense to the left. Again, Ms. Lisa.
This is, where are the spreadsheet? 1.8 million be transferred to land from the solid waste. 1.9 million will be transferred from the road and bridge. That is 1 year's budget that we currently have in cash, not earning any good interest.
It's going to interest-bearing account.
Interest-bearing account is called the Louisiana Asset Management Program. They pay compounded interest.
You said we'll be 27,000.
I ran the, interest calculator on the 3 million close to it, and it was 24. What I had. That I read you off.
Right, 25.
Make a motion.
Motion second. To move 1-year budget expense to the left.
This is still holding on nice and dark.
Okay, Ms. Lisa. Number 7.
7. Discuss declare surplus for solid waste. That is, all of this is on this sheet right here. Y'all follow
Yes, I
me?
see it.
Okay, that's the I'm looking at a $558,000 surplus right now, after moving 1 year's budget, which would, be $279,000 to road and bridge, $279,000 to general fund. We can do that as soon as you approve it.
We make that recommendation to declare 2020 surplus for solid waste, $558,609.
Second.
Okay, number 8.
Great, discuss the, reserve forecasting. So this is the reserves forecasted for the end of 2021 that I would like to go ahead and mark as reserves. Road and bridge is 1.4 million for overlay and bridge projects. General fund, 933,000 would be the engineer, grant writer, and building repairs.
Okay. Make a motion to recommend the reserve budget 2021 forecast surplus.
Second.
Got any reason?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Next, number 9, discuss raise for deputy coroner. Past credit. You pretty busy today, Ms. Lisa.
I know, I'm telling you, this is not even supposed to be me, but,
I can
apparently,
do that one. I mean,
Yes.
Make it easy for you.
yes.
You guys, voted the other day to approve Dr. Bickham's budget,
Right, amendment to the budget.
but it didn't have a specific number as to what the 2 salaries were gonna be approved to be. So she needs the vote, which, what is it?
To raise the deputy.
It's from $14 to $14.43.
40%.
Yeah. It's from 29,160 to 30,000.
So we just need y'all to bring forward to get the jury to approve the
Yeah.
pay raise.
Make that motion.
Right. So we can raise the deputy coroner salary. Got it, Ms. Lisa?
Yes, sir, 30,000.
But it's all the year, right?
Yes, that's what he said.
It's just
Thank you.
money there, so we do. Okay, discuss late fee automatic payment for recurring utilities. Vice President.
I understand that we had some late fees that were approaching $1,000. I would like to see that, to keep that from ever happening again, that we just automatically draft those utility fees, water, gas, electricity, out of our account, and that way we don't have that problem.
Why should it come certain time of the month? Why would it late being paid?
Julie was out, those from,
It
remember
won't
when I
happen.
passed away?
It won't happen again. This is once in a current thing, right? It don't happen every month.
It'll save you a lot of time and heartache and bill paying and checks.
I mean, it might have been a one-time thing, but then that stops all of that. Like you're saying, it
Yeah.
makes life easier and it
Yeah.
keeps that from happening.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
The only issue with the automatic draft, utility companies notoriously have a way of creeping on them.
No, I think that,
We're
I
gonna
wouldn't
do it.
I would set it up in a way where Julie has to hit submit pay. It's not gonna be an automatic draft,
No,
it's gonna be kinda like a bill pay online. You can set it up through our bank, where it's just a bill, but it also saves us about $2 per stamp and envelope and letter and check. About $2 for us to pay sometimes a $5 bill.
But it's not good for the jury to set up a pay scale. That's not do anyway.
To do an automatic pay, no.
No.
Because
Yeah.
the other issue
You can't do
is,
it.
it's not only the bills that come in here. Historically, late fees came from our legal advisor over there wouldn't submit the bills till they got here. And the guy from utilities was ready to turn the power off. We'd send a building inspector to stop the power being cut off to the DA's annex.
But it was,
Because
yeah, it
the
would be-
bills never made it here. They go there, then they get
That's
turned
kinda
over
like,
here.
not really, it's not an automatic
Draft,
payment,
no.
it's a online bill pay. I do that with all my bills, and basically, when I hit send, they mail a check from the bank to my utility or to my other, it's not a direct.
Yeah,
It's a transfer, but you're authorizing the
Yeah.
transfer.
Yeah.
that's still gonna require Julie to be here.
Yeah, not a draft,
Or somebody with the,
no.
Yeah.
Now, does somebody have the authority besides Julie to do that? Do you have that, Joe?
No.
I believe she does pay,
Does.
is it her Blue Cross that she's able to pay online?
she can do it. The treasurer can do it.
Yeah.
If you
Already.
have access to the bank accounts, you can hit send.
Yeah, and that's all we're asking, just to.
It's not a bank draft, we just approve it, go ahead and pay it.
Okay, well, I take that back. I'm not asking for us to do a bank draft. I'm asking.
Yeah, I
that we
was.
do automatic pay.
Yeah.
I'm asking that we, go ahead and do it where we do not have to deal with
Online.
paper bills, so it takes a step out of there.
And it also takes out the approval step, because that was something that got added, a layer that got added in, because once upon a time, the recurring bills like phone, gas, electric, your utility bills, parish manager signed those, or treasurer, whoever signed them. We don't have to have approval for those, because we can't stop them.
No, it's coming all the time.
I am trying to work on that, that's the whole thing, because right now your policy says anything over 1,000 has to be approved by the chair. It does not specify recurring bills, so I'm gonna, hopefully by the end of the year, come back to you and say, these are our contracts, this is what we don't want approval for, as long as it stays with this. It's gonna be a nice little report for y'all, but that's a long time coming. But we were trying to get the utility bills on automatic draft, but if not, online billing is the next best
Oh, I
thing.
think all our baby
Yeah.
better than a
Yeah.
draft.
Okay.
Number 11, discuss and make recommendations to declare county clerk 2020 past wages to reflect step correct.
So that goes back to there was only one employee that was negatively impacted by the way that the STEP program was set up. So when the police jury went and voted to set that what was it, 3.25 or whatever it was,
That particular one had like a 1.2%
Yes.
increase, we
so
made,
she ended up making,
increased the median to 3.61.
3.6, so she was making significantly less than her step allowed, I think over $2 less. So now that that's been adjusted, I would like to put it for the jury just to at least reimburse her 1 year of what she was,
Should have been getting,
Should have been
she was
getting.
with everybody else.
yes, and
Hers
she should have been
was-
getting paid what her step is approved for now, that's with the now.
That'd be Ms. Julie, right?
Ms. Duke, we looked across, she was the only employee that was in 1%.
Make a recommendation.
Make a recommendation.
That's, 1 year, recommend, 1
Just to
year.
correct the $2 what it is an hour for the year.
Just to correct the past.
Yes.
Yes, I think it's $1.92.
Okay. Yes, 1 year, it's going to retroactive 1 year.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lisa. Okay, next on the agenda, discuss and make recommendations for employee pay raise for the year 2021. Vice President.
I would like to see that since we did not give our employees the raise, the normal step raise at the end of December, and we seem to have gotten a little more tax money, and we seem to be in a little better shape than we thought, that we go ahead and give them those raises at
That's
this
a
time.
3% cost of living increase.
With cost of living increase.
Because we've been giving it every year, we see what we're doing this year.
That's y'all's decision.
I'm saying, we see what we're
Yeah,
doing.
I mean, the
Well, I
general
think
fund is still hurting.
Hmm.
That's all I can say, you're already, so you're $66,000 in the hole. Maybe we could look at it when we look at the February number, June, I mean, I think me and Jody had talked about some other funds looking at in June. That's entirely up to y'all.
I think we decided to buy a big building. We are talking about an overlay project, and the people that make it happen are the people that work here.
Correct, but you gotta also understand they're fund driven, it's designated fund driven. So you can't ever say it's across the board.
I think what she's referring to is the budget supports the building department's raise. The budget supports DPW's raise, the solid waste people's raise, but then we get into the general fund, which is our administrative staff.
Yes, it's the administrative.
So
Only the
it's-
administrative
Only the
staff.
administrative staff. Now, we're talking about, doing, administrative fees and all that kind of stuff that we gotta agree on. I think once we put that in place, maybe we can look at it. We've gotta get the fund out of the red. I gotta come up with $66,000 by the end of the year. Alright, so, I mean, we were $32,000 higher in sales taxes just for the general fund, just in January, February alone.
And it's more an answer than just us, because Judge Jones has sent a letter asking where her people's raise are at this year, the health department people. And all of their budgets
Just
are good,
take one over,
so,
so you take the whole,
yes.
everybody can see it.
Right. I'm not withdrawing my item. If we can find money for some things, why can't we find money for that?
Those monies.
Hmm?
Is that a motion?
Yes, ma'am. Benefit for the jury, you explain the situation, then, get a jury to follow section to reject it or accept it.
So you're saying that we would only have a problem with the employees that are paid out of general fund?
Correct. But I'm thinking.
I mean, like maybe 4 employees?
Just 4 employees, it's not very many, a lot of them, so, but we got,
It's
we
not many.
got the health unit, we got the DA.
You're talking about.
The health unit is paid out of health unit fund.
You're talking about, yeah, I mean, just I don't know how many is coming out of.
Me, you, and Mindy,
I know the
Jody,
judge wants to be a part of
and
it.
Lisa.
The judge
Her employees.
called me specifically and wants to be a part of it. If you're giving it across the board basic raises, they're gonna want it. If they get it, the DA is gonna want it. So you're talking about all.
But we
those
never do raises. I mean, they're supplemented. They get money from other places besides the police jury. Since I've been there, when we do the across the board raises, it has nothing to do with DA employees. As a matter of fact, since I've been there 2017, when Sam wanted a raise for his employees, he came to the police jury and asked for that. So did the justice of the peace and anyone else that had nothing to do with police jury employees.
The judge has already asked me.
And
And I'm telling you, the judge is
Well,
coming
the
to
judge
say
already
it.
has one employee that's already, the police jury is paying for their insurance.
So,
Yeah,
we're making
one.
everybody go without a raise because we may not be able to support it for a handful of employees that work in the field.
You point to everybody else to call them before employees.
And I'm not saying we can't, I'm not saying that we cannot make it happen, but we got to get the administrative fee, you know,
Part of
set.
that whole issue is, okay, you have salaries. His time is not just general fund issues. He handles garbage complaints, he handles building complaints, he handles road and bridge complaints. He spends a lot of time doing all that other thing.
I do.
His
All
salary,
day
her
Thursday is
treasurer,
FEMA.
working
That's all
on
I
the budget, I
can
don't
do.
care, working on these administrative people, they're paid out of general fund, but there's nothing that
But they-
says you can't back
yeah.
charge their salaries in entirety
As long
to
as
all
it's
your major
proportional
sources.
to the work performed.
Yeah,
My problem
And
is,
you're a nightmare for her. Ooh-wee.
exactly, but that's why I wanna do the administrative fee, it cuts it, we do a percentage of salaries, blah, 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 I'm gonna get that. My problem is that Sam has said that he doesn't feel like that we can do it. He's not against it, he just wants us to be protected. I have that out with Jessica, she is going to
As
give
soon
me
as
a
we
fee.
get y'all could make it in, make a recommendation as long as she gets approval from the legislative auditor that it's legal to do this.
Or, or we can wait until she gets it and then put it on
Yeah,
them.
we can do it again.
Okay.
Now, that's what I would recommend, I would like to come before the jury saying, we have the money for the race.
Yeah, then we can do it.
Okay.
Okay?
No, but that's okay.
And this should be pretty quick, I emailed her
Yeah,
yesterday.
next week.
Yeah, we should know something next week.
Well, then why don't we just say, depending on what your findings are from there, go
Okay.
ahead and do it depending on the findings.
Correct.
And we do not do it
It
if.
probably makes-
Correct.
And
And
that
that's
way
gonna
it's
be,
Happy.
that's really, they're gonna be the recommendation for all of these, cause I am waiting for Jessica to give me the green light on all that we talked today.
Y'all make a recommendation pending,
Pending approval.
Approval from,
and we might have it before the jury meeting Monday.
Oh.
Maybe.
that leave? We should have it?
Monday is President's Day. a lot of
Oh, is it?
I had it depending on approval from attorney general
Where they're asking.
or district attorney.
I'm sorry, Mitch, what'd you say?
Yes, pending approval.
Depending on approval from attorney general or district attorney.
The auditor.
Legislative auditor.
Auditor?
Yeah,
Okay,
Independent,
Independent
Got it.
auditor.
independent auditor.
okay.
You got it, Misha?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next, discuss and make recommendation to approve bids for past prison license.
I probably shouldn't have went to her either, for some reason Kenny gave her the quotes. He's gotten two quotes, he wants to get the outside lights and turn it over to prison city finally. Got two quotes, I don't know the details of much of it, he called and told me that the quote for Ronco was a little bit lower, and it was the equipment that he actually wanted. So he would like y'all to approve that one, it's the low bid.
Make a recommendation to approve the low bid from Ronco for lighting at the past prison. That's a motion. Yes, sir.
Let me ask one thing, when y'all do that low bid of, and put the dollar amount out there.
Yes,
because-
please.
For $6,435.
There you go, because
Yes.
when you say low bid, it becomes ambiguous, and the public says, what they just approved.
Thank you, JR. I was gonna put that, we've been discussing it in August.
But you're right, just for the people.
It's causing me fits too.
Okay.
What
Low
was
bid
the
of
rest?
$6,435.
$6,435.
Got it, Lisa?
Got it.
Okay, good, thank you. Now discuss administrative fees for solid waste and bridge, road and bridge pending approval from the DA.
We did that when we discussed the raises, not for the judge. Did you get that, Demisha? That was a lump in?
Yeah, I got it. So that doesn't need to go to full jury yet, right? Y'all just discussing it, or you need to?
No, it needs to go before the full jury. Just like the raise.
Okay.
Pending the
Okay.
legislative order opinion, not the, independent order.
Was number 15 something that needs to come on?
No,
No, that one will stay on.
Discuss and make recommendation to transfer $200,000 from road and bridge to grant fund for additional upfront costs.
So-
Increasing debt for FEMA.
It's not an increase in debt, the contract price, there's two things that's happened here. One is, up until Lisa came, all of our reimbursements that were coming in from the FEMA projects, instead of going into a grant fund, have been going into road and bridge. So, that's one thing there. The other thing is, the governor put a temporary hold on reimbursements for a couple of weeks in February, because they have their federal audit that went on. So we have a few $100,000 in reimbursements in the wheel right now that we need to get, but our bridge makers are still building the bridges.
okay, new order declared does increase the debt from FEMA from the 725 to the 925. Yeah, it'll increase what they owe us, because we're paying it up front. Correct.
Make recommendation to transfer $200,000 from road and bridge to the grant fund account.
Second.
You know the reason?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next, discuss and make recommendation for Parish engineering.
I think y'all covered that already, and what was the one? It covered the reserve surplus. We just want to make sure that we have justification now to really need an engineer.
Parish engineer.
Yes.
Now there's need a permanent Parish engineer. Okay, next, discuss and make recommendation for emergency preparedness and Mill Creek Lane.
Scratch that one.
To the table that.
Mr. Jason didn't get what
Okay.
the committee.
The table that. Okay, so
Okay.
2021 sales tax agreement. As you have a sales tax agreement with the school board, and that's our sales tax. It's something like $49,000 a year. Something like that.
Well, this attorney's too, 'cause I had the numbers from last year.
It's something roughly around $49,000, $50,000 a year, right?
It's $4,000 a month,
Per month. I got
plus
it.
attorney fees,
Mhm.
plus mail out fees, plus it was roughly around 62 grand last year. So I guess the contract needs to be approved for
They do,
2021.
we skipped it 1 year, that was cost, but we forgot about it.
Yeah.
They forgot about it, we forgot.
I do want to point.
Go ahead.
I want to point something out, Miss Lisa, on the letter for the software.
Uh-huh.
At the bottom, you see what I highlighted. This letter, I think, is a draft of the letter they sent us last year, but it says 21 on it, and it says the jury's cost for the setup fee is the $16,800.
Right.
We paid that last year. That was supposed to be the setup fee, and we may want to talk with someone just to make sure that we're only supposed to be paying that
The
ongoing
annual
maintenance.
charge, they'd be charging us to set it up again, which we paid last year to set it up.
Yeah, we paid to set it up,
Yeah.
right.
So might need to readjust that to whatever the actual recurring fee is.
Yeah, it's current every year.
Mhm.
16,000 was the set up, I don't recall that.
And I think it was 2 different items, so I can Monday, if you all just want to approve the agreement. I could try to reach out to Miss Susan to see if she can update that letter, so it just doesn't have anything on it about the 16 before it's signed by the
Yeah,
jury.
please do the recall, like I said, it was something like 4,000 extra a year, but the 16,000 was the setup, I recall that. Yeah, let's just check it out Monday to make sure. And we
Yes,
set it
sir.
up every year, you know. Some new software stuff they got, I recall. Okay. And as you know, Ms. Lisa, we had a good year, a good run in sales tax. $1,045,000 from January, from December.
Yes, it was even higher than, a little bit higher than 2019.
Okay, next we discuss and recommend termination of dumpsters and roll off of public service for dumpsters.
So, Ms. Julie and I have given them 3 weeks if we have to produce any signed contract we have with them.
We have them.
There is none. They gave us some contract for the dumpster behind the Clinton Police Department, so we notified them that's not us. So we would like to terminate those services as of February 28th.
Motion? Second. Okay, Mr. Reese, got it? Okay, anything else coming for the committee?
That was month to month anyway.
I have one question. What date did you say, Jody?
February 28th.
February 28th. Got it.
Anything else coming for the committee?
Not for me, Mr. President.
Oh, wait, I do have one thing.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is a small, picky, nitpicky, but your procedure does not have on there that the vice president can sign the checks. I just need to change the procedure that says nitpicky. Right now, it's parish treasurer, finance chair, and president. I need to add, the vice president to it. So it needs to be, I would like to make it says parish treasurer or vice president.
And the parish manager signs it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
parish manager and president. 'Cause that's the way it says.
And my understanding is Keith was signing them, but he wasn't on.
He was not on cross,
Not procedure wise.
procedure wise.
Yeah, Keith signed and also Sean signed also
But
as vice president.
And the only reason why I'm so picky about procedure is Jessica told us that this year, this audit is going to be, they're going to be audited this year.
Client's audit this year.
So I really wanna make sure we get it right.
Make a motion that the vice president be allowed to sign.
Procedure.
Change our procedure.
Change out the
Procedure and
allowed.
policies.
Change out the piece of allowed, the vice president be allowed to sign. You got your mission?
Does that mean we need to change signature cards again?
No.
Does that mean we need to change the resolution and all that?
No, it's all there.
No, it's just in the policy.
Just to add to the procedures, to the policy.
So that needs to go to full jury? Yeah?
Yeah.
If it's a policy change?
Yeah.
Yeah, gonna be transparent. Go for it. To the full jury.
Make a motion to adjourn.
So can we have that policy worked up by Monday, the new policy, so we can see it? If we need
It's
paperwork
in
for
there,
everything.
you can take it and rock and roll. In there, it's in the step. It just, all it says is parish treasurer, and then underneath it says, parish manager or parish president. You just need to add or vice president.
Do you have it? Are you gonna add it?
Nope, that's for you. In policy.
No. No.
I'll email it to you.
Thank you.
I now make a motion to adjourn.
This is one out of Word document or something.
It's the handbook. The policy and procedure book.
They've adjourned. I'll add the damn word, I'll add the word.
I'm not touching that policy and procedure. Nisha said that's what she does.
Y'all
So
adjourn?
I'm not touching it.
Yeah.
I thought I heard that word.
Yeah.
That's what we
I stopped.
That's for example.
Yeah,
it's
but
not supposed to
this
be.